The transfer portal still is running rampant going into the end of January. Who would have ever thought that this was a thing? But regardless of the situation, Nick Saban's retirement, Kalen DeBoer's arrival in Tuscaloosa, Jed Fish's arrival in Seattle, there were always going to be names that were going to follow their coaches elsewhere. But defensive back Jabbar Muhammad is not one of them. He did look at Alabama, and he also looked at his home state of Texas, where the Longhorns reside. But he's actually staying in the Pacific Northwest and is going to somewhat be a rival of his former team because he's committed to Oregon. Dan Lanning gets another one. What does this mean for the Ducks defense? What does this mean for the future of Muhammad? And really, what else does Dan Lanning have to do at this point? Let's go ahead and discuss. But if you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. I get it. The season's come to a close. Best of luck to Michigan underneath Sharon Moore, and happy trails to you, Jim Harbaugh. But it's the offseason. I'm here to keep you entertained nonstop. We have a ton of content planned for you. Live shows, recap in 2023, a look ahead to 2024, transfer portal news. Muhammad, he's going to Oregon. So if this is what you need to survive the dreaded offseason, go ahead and smash that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment giving your thoughts on Muhammad's arrival in Eugene. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados, and Oregon faithful everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. Jabbar Muhammad going to Oregon is somewhat of a slap in the face, but also kind of expected. You want to stay in an area that you know. You'll want to stay around competition that you know. And somebody has gotten an up-close look in person at you on 2 different occasions where you were the best defensive back on the field, and they value your status. And so naturally, Dan Lanning was always going to be a guy who was in the running to land a player like Jabbar Muhammad. This was the best defensive back for Washington last year, top to bottom. His ability to create separation with receivers, his blanket-style coverage technique, open field tackling is really strong. Also had 3 interceptions on the year, and I think it was nearly a dozen pass breakups. This is the #1 cornerback. And Alabama needed a #1 corner. They just lost Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold to the NFL. You also had a #1 cornerback issue a little bit at Texas because Ryan Watts is going to the NFL. But Muhammad doesn't want to go there. And this also was really interesting because Muhammad started his career off at Oklahoma State. He only spent 1 year in Seattle. It was a great year. It was a year that eventually will be the reason why we talk about him as potentially a draft candidate in 2024. But he was brought in by DeBoer. And DeBoer goes to Tuscaloosa that's in need of a cornerback. And he says, I'm going to stay with Eugene. So what exactly does this mean? For Muhammad, he believes in what is being built in the Big Ten, and he believes in what's being built at Eugene. It's very easy to go ahead and say, I like what I'm seeing down in Tuscaloosa. I think that there's something promising here in Austin, but I've gone up against the wide receivers that are taking reps in practice at Eugene. I've been going up against the running backs that are in the backfield at Autzen Stadium. I've seen up close and personal what this defense looks like underneath a guy like Dan Lanning. And I kind of want to be a part of it. I think it would be really interesting to learn from somebody who has such a variety background when it comes to coaching defensive backs and really understanding the do's and don'ts and coverages, X's and O's of football. Let me go ahead and be a part of this squad. And also, let me be one of the other pieces that ends conversations about you being the newcomer. Like, Texas is the newcomer in the SEC, but I've told you on multiple occasions, I think them and Oklahoma in a not so distant amount of time will be sitting at the big boy table. They're actually going to kick 2 teams out of the big boy table and send them to the kiddie side. And the same thing could be said about a place like Oregon, especially when they're able to do what they've done so far in the transfer portal and really set the tone into next year. You already are bringing back Tez Johnson. You like your running back room. You like your offensive line. You have 4 starters returning. You also have 7 defensive starters, and you like what you have at the linebacker and secondary position. So it's very challenging to say that when you look top to bottom at this roster, they're not going to be a player in year 1. And then if you're Dan Lanning, what this is you just basically saying, hey, we're good enough, and this is why I didn't take the job at Alabama. This is only, if you are an Oregon fan, just proving that Lanning not only is all bought in with the Ducks, but also He sees the vision of what everyone else has been saying. Oh, you don't want to go to Tuscaloosa because if you go to Tuscaloosa, you're going to be playing in the toughest conference and we got a lot of money for you and you could be a part of something special. And now he's actually living up to that specialness. He's going out of his way to build for the now and for the long term. I don't know many squads that are going out and landing a 5-star quarterback that actually started several games to sit for a year behind another former 5-star quarterback that could end up being the reason why you make it to the college football playoff. You end up being a player in the Big Ten in year one and maybe even a national title contender. This is just adding another log to the fire and saying, yeah, this is Oregon. This is what we do. This is how we do things. And if you don't want to be a part of it, go ahead. Just sign on up. We would love to have you here. That's the way you have to view this move. And Muhammad now, he comes in, plug and play on the outside. Look at that. Plug and play wide receiver in place of Trey Franklin. Plug and play cornerback on the opposing sideline. You still have Tess Johnson. You bring in Dylan Gabriel. You're not slowing down anytime soon. In fact, you can make an argument that this team, this roster, might end up fighting for the spot at number 1. I believe they are a top 3 team going into next year. The addition of Muhammad, what you've already seen, and especially for a guy like Dan Lanning, who didn't have to make an offer, especially knowing that he's already seen him on 2 different occasions this past year. And he realizes, well, I couldn't beat him, so I want him now to join me because of I need somebody on my outside. All that aside, you look at this roster, they have a very good shot of competing for the number 1 spot by the time the season rolls around. They're well built, they're well polished, they're finely tuned, and they're adding in just these little sprinkle pieces that are going to be the difference of a win and a loss, especially in a brand new conference. I love this Oregon team. I love that Dan Lanning is staying behind, and I love what he's preaching right now. He's making sure that everybody knows we are bought in with a guy like Jabbar Muhammad. We're bought in with a guy like Evan Stewart, Dylan Gabriel. We also got Dante Moore. We got a ton of other transfers that are here. Maybe not the same level, but still damn good. Oh, and we also are crushing it on the recruiting trail. Highest recruiting class of all time, if I'm not mistaken, this past year. Yeah, I think that we're doing a lot of good up in UG. They're going to be good. They're going to be really good. They're going to be a threat from the second that they touch down next year. And so if you have not placed money yet, if you have not gone out of your way to make sure that you're putting a lot of your funds and belief into the Ducks, I would probably do so right now. Oregon is quackers if you think that they're not going to be a player in year 1 of the Big Ten. They're built, they're strong, they're physical, and they just add in yet another difference maker on the defense. Don't be surprised and you see the preseason rankings come out. And the Ducks, what are we saying? Probably their floor is number 5. Their ceiling absolutely can be number 1. And with a guy like Muhammad, that might just solidify them alongside Ohio State as the front runners for the Big Ten champion. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.